16-year-old Ilara Vance kept her gaze fixed on the scuffed linoleum as she navigated the bustling corridors of Crestwood Academy. Her slender frame, often obscured by loose-fitting sweaters, and her long, auburn hair, perpetually tucked behind her ears, allowed Ilara to fade into the background like a whisper. This was by design. Having relocated 7 times in a decade due to her mother's career as a field botanist, Ilara had perfected the art of quiet survival. What none of her new peers at Crestwood understood was that Ilara had been immersed in the rigorous discipline of adaptive combat arts since she was 7. Her uncle, a retired special operations operative, had insisted she master self-defense after a harrowing incident during her early childhood. A decade of intense, almost monastic training had forged her into a precision instrument, cloaked in the guise of a quiet, unassuming student. She could neutralize threats twice her size in mere seconds, but Ilara had made a solemn vow to her family. Her formidable skills were reserved strictly for dire emergencies. Crestwood Academy, a sprawling complex of red brick and ivy in a picturesque, affluent town, housed nearly 2,000 students from varied backgrounds. Its social ecosystem was a brutal, unspoken hierarchy, with the most popular cliques reigning supreme from their perch in the senior wing. Ilara had been attending for a month, successfully maintaining her anonymity by eating lunch in the quiet corners of the art studio, choosing circuitous routes between classes, and speaking only when directly addressed by instructors. The undisputed sovereign of Crestwood's social scene was Serena Thorne, a 17-year-old senior with perfectly coiffed blonde hair, an endless wardrobe of designer labels, and a streak of malice as wide as the local river. Her inner circle comprised Chloe Vance, no relation, a formidable volleyball player with a razor-sharp wit, and Brooke Sterling, a dark-haired girl whose family's influence seemed to grant her immunity from any repercussions. Together, they governed the social landscape through a potent blend of intimidation, public shaming, and calculated cruelty. Ilara's carefully constructed invisibility began to fray on a crisp autumn morning in mid-October. She was hurrying to her first period biology class, her arms laden with textbooks, when she inadvertently brushed past Chloe near the main lockers. The contact was minimal, barely disturbing Chloe's meticulously braided hair, yet the reaction was explosive. "Watch where you're going, nobody!" Chloe snapped, her green eyes flashing with disproportionate fury. Several students paused, sensing the familiar scent of impending drama. "My apologies," Ilara murmured, adjusting her glasses and attempting to continue her path. "Apologies," Chloe echoed, her voice escalating. "Do you have any idea what this jacket cost?" She gestured dramatically at her pristine designer athletic wear. Ilara's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, but she forced herself to remain outwardly calm. "I said I was sorry. It was an accident." "An accident?" Serena materialized beside Chloe, like a predator sensing vulnerability. "Look what we have here, girls. The little shadow thinks she can just bump into people and vanish." Brooke completed the encirclement, effectively pinning Ilara against the cold metal lockers. "I don't think she understands how things operate around here," she added with a saccharine smile that never quite reached her eyes. Ilara felt her muscles instinctively coil, her body's threat assessment systems activating. 3 aggressors, confined space, multiple escape routes compromised. Her training automatically began calculating angles and vulnerabilities, but she consciously forced herself to regulate her breathing and maintain a passive stance. "I really need to get to class," Ilara stated quietly, attempting to step around them. "Class can wait," Serena declared, placing a perfectly manicured hand on Ilara's shoulder to halt her. "I think you need a lesson in common courtesy first." The hallway was now filling with students, forming a loose, silent amphitheater around the confrontation. Ilara noted how many averted their gaze uncomfortably but made no move to intervene. She recognized the familiar pattern from previous schools, bystanders who preferred to witness someone else's suffering rather than risk becoming targets themselves. "What's your name, Shadow?" Chloe demanded. "Ilara." "Ilara what?" "Vance." Serena's lip curled into a sneer. "Another charity case, I bet. You people always forget your place." Ilara's hands clenched involuntarily at the casual dismissal, but she maintained her composure. She'd heard worse. The key was not to react, not to grant them the satisfaction they craved. "I'm not looking for trouble," Ilara said firmly. "I just want to attend my class." "But trouble found you," Brooke sang-songed, "and we haven't decided if you've learned your lesson yet." The low-level harassment persisted intermittently over the subsequent weeks. Ilara's art supplies would mysteriously vanish from her locker, only to reappear scattered in the girls' restroom. Anonymous notes, scrawled with crude insults, were slipped into her backpack, making her cheeks burn. During lunch, if she dared to sit in the bustling cafeteria, food would accidentally splatter near her table, or someone would jostle her chair hard enough to send her tray clattering. Ilara endured it all with quiet dignity, just as she had at previous schools. Her family had taught her that bullies thrived on reactions, that displaying weakness only intensified the torment. She reminded herself daily that this was temporary, that high school was merely a fleeting stop on the path to her true life. But Serena and her clique seemed increasingly frustrated by Ilara's unresponsiveness. They were accustomed to tears, pleas, or angry outbursts that would justify escalating their cruelty. Ilara's calm detachment only fueled their determination to break her. The situation reached its inevitable breaking point 2 weeks before the winter break. Ilara was working late in the art studio on a complex sculpture project when she finally packed up her materials at nearly 5 o'clock. The halls were largely deserted, with only a few students lingering for after-school activities. She was walking toward the main exit, her backpack heavy with art books and tools, when she heard familiar, high-pitched laughter echoing from the direction of the auditorium. Ilara's stomach dropped as she recognized Serena's distinctive giggle, followed by Chloe's sharp cackle. She quickly altered her route, hoping to avoid them entirely, but the sound of quickening footsteps behind her confirmed her worst fears. Well, Serena's voice carried down the empty hallway. "Look who's trying to slip away." Ilara kept walking, hoping they would lose interest, but the footsteps quickened behind her. Soon, she found herself cornered near a display of academic awards, with Serena directly in front of her and Chloe and Brooke flanking her sides. "Going somewhere, Shadow?" Chloe asked with mock sweetness. "Home," Ilara replied simply, adjusting her backpack straps and subtly scanning for an escape route. "Not so fast." Serena stepped closer, invading Ilara's personal space. "We've been trying to have a proper conversation with you for weeks, but you keep running away. That's incredibly rude." Ilara's training activated automatically, assessing threats and calculating responses. Serena was approximately 5 inches taller and 20 pounds heavier, but soft from a lack of genuine physical exertion. Chloe possessed athletic muscle, but poor balance and coordination. Brooke was the least physical threat, but positioned to block the nearest exit. "What do you want?" Ilara asked, fighting to keep her voice steady. "Respect," Serena declared dramatically. "You glide through this school like you're above everyone else, like you don't have to abide by the same rules as the rest of us." "I don't believe I'm better than anyone," Ilara said honestly. "I just wish to be left alone." "But that's not how it works here," Chloe chimed in. "Everyone has a designated place in the social order, and your place is at the very bottom." Brooke nodded enthusiastically. "We're simply trying to help you comprehend where you belong." Ilara felt a familiar, profound calm settle over her, the same centered feeling she experienced in the dojo when facing a truly challenging opponent. time seemed to stretch, her senses sharpening, absorbing every detail of her surroundings and her opponent's positioning. "I comprehend perfectly," she said quietly. "You three are deeply insecure bullies who elevate yourselves by tormenting people who cannot defend themselves." The words hung in the air like a gauntlet thrown. Serena's perfectly made-up face flushed crimson with rage, her composure cracking for the first time. "Excuse me," she hissed, stepping even closer until she was mere inches from Ilara's face. "You heard me," Ilara replied, no longer attempting to appear meek. Something fundamental had shifted within her, an inviolable boundary had been crossed. "You are pathetic." Chloe gasped audibly. "Did she just call us pathetic?" "I believe she did," Brooke added, her voice rising with excitement at the prospect of escalation. Serena's hands clenched into fists at her sides. "You little wretch. Do you have any idea who you're speaking to?" "3 girls who peaked in high school," Ilara said with deadly calm. The slap came without warning. Serena's right hand whipped across Ilara's left cheek with enough force to snap her head to the side and send her glasses askew. The sharp crack echoed through the empty hallway like a gunshot. For a moment, everything was perfectly still. Ilara slowly reached up and adjusted her glasses, her cheek burning from the impact. She could taste the metallic tang of blood where her teeth had cut the inside of her mouth. "Feel better now?" she asked, her voice eerily calm. Serena looked momentarily stunned by the absence of tears or cowering, but quickly regained her cruel confidence. "Much better. Perhaps now you'll learn to show some respect." "Or what?" Ilara asked, straightening to her full height. "You'll strike me again?" "Perhaps I will," Serena threatened, raising her hand for another blow. This time, Ilara was ready. The instant Serena's hand began its upward arc, Ilara's training took over completely. A decade of muscle memory and honed reflexes activated like a circuit being closed. She intercepted Serena's wrist in midair with her left hand, gripping it with enough focused pressure to make the other girl gasp in startled pain. "Don't!" Ilara said quietly, her voice carrying a new, chilling authority that made all 3 girls freeze. "Let go of me!" Serena demanded, struggling to pull her arm free, but Ilara's grip was unyielding. "I warned you," Ilara said, almost with a sigh. What transpired next took less than 5 seconds, but unfolded in agonizing slow motion for everyone watching. Ilara twisted Serena's captured wrist while stepping to the side, using the momentum to execute a flawless hip throw. Serena landed hard on her back, the air expelling from her lungs in a pained wheeze. Chloe recovered first, charging at Ilara with an inarticulate shout of fury. Ilara sidestepped effortlessly, extending her leg to trip the rushing girl. Chloe's own momentum sent her tumbling into the display case with a loud crash that sent academic awards scattering across the polished floor. Brooke, witnessing her friends dispatched in mere seconds, spun to flee. She managed precisely 3 steps before Ilara's hand clamped down on her shoulder, spinning her around. A single, precise finger pressed against a pressure point in Brooke's neck made her knees buckle, and she collapsed to the floor, conscious but utterly unable to move. Ilara stood in the center of the fallen bullies, her breathing still perfectly even, her posture balanced and poised. The entire confrontation had lasted less than 10 seconds, and she had barely broken a sweat. "I attempted to walk away," she said, addressing all 3 girls who were now staring at her with expressions of shock, fear, and dawning comprehension. "I attempted to ignore you. I attempted to be invisible, but you would not allow it." Serena was slowly pushing herself up, one hand pressed to her lower back where she'd hit the floor. "What in the world are you?" she gasped. "Someone you should not have provoked," Ilara replied simply. She reached down and retrieved her backpack, which had fallen during the altercation. "I've been training in martial arts since I was 7. My uncle is a former special operations combat instructor. I could have put all 3 of you in the infirmary without exerting myself." Chloe was pulling herself up from the scattered trophies, a small cut on her forehead where she'd hit the glass case. "You're unhinged," she whispered. "No," Ilara corrected. "I'm disciplined. There's a significant difference." She looked at each of them in turn. "You wish to know why I've been avoiding you? It is not because I am afraid. It is because I was attempting to protect you from yourselves." Brooke was still on the ground, tears streaming down her face as sensation slowly returned to her limbs. "I can't feel my legs," she whimpered. "Temporary," Ilara assured her. "The sensation will return in a few minutes. I targeted a pressure point, not your spine." The sound of running footsteps echoed down the hallway as Officer Miller, the head of school security, rounded the corner. He stopped short at the scene before him, 3 popular girls in various states of dishevelment and distress, with Ilara standing calmly in the center, holding her backpack. "What transpired here?" he demanded, his hand moving instinctively to his radio. "They assaulted me," Ilara said simply. "I defended myself." "That's a lie!" Serena struggled to her feet, her perfect hair now a tangled mess. "She attacked us. She's some kind of psycho fighter." Officer Miller looked skeptical. Ilara was still standing exactly where he'd found her, showing no signs of aggression or agitation. The 3 other girls, meanwhile, were clearly the ones who had sustained the worst of whatever had occurred. "Miss Vance," he said carefully, "I'm going to need you to accompany me to the headmistress's office." "Of course," Ilara agreed. "Should I wait for them to recover, or will someone else assist them to the nurse's station?" Her calm cooperation seemed to confuse Officer Miller even more. Most students involved in altercations were either still aggressive or visibly upset. Ilara appeared completely composed, almost serene. "I'll call for additional assistance," he said, speaking into his radio to request backup and medical evaluation. As they waited, Serena continued her protests. "She's dangerous. She could have killed us. She needs to be expelled." Ilara remained silent, knowing that anything she said would likely be used against her. She'd been through this process before at other schools, though never quite like this. Director Albright was a tall, stern woman in her 50s who had been leading Crestwood Academy for over a decade. She'd witnessed every conceivable type of student drama, but the situation in her office was unusual even by her standards. Ilara sat calmly in one chair while Serena, Chloe and Brooke occupied the others, all still showing signs of their encounter. The school nurse had confirmed that none of them had sustained serious injuries, though Brooke complained of lingering numbness and Chloe needed a bandage for her cut. "I've heard 4 disparate versions of what occurred," Director Albright began, "and frankly none of them make complete sense. Miss Thorne, you claim that Miss Vance attacked you without provocation." "That's precisely what happened," Serena insisted. "We were simply speaking to her, and she went berserk. She's been trained to kill people or something." Director Albright turned to Ilara. "Miss Vance, what is your account of events?" Ilara took a deep breath. "They cornered me near the awards display. Miss Thorne struck me across the face. When she attempted to strike me again, I defended myself using martial arts techniques I've been learning since I was 7 years old." "She's lying!" Chloe burst out. "We would never hit anyone." "Actually," Director Albright said, consulting a paper on her desk, "we have security cameras in that hallway." She turned her computer monitor so everyone could see it. "Would you care to review the footage?" The grainy black and white video clearly depicted the entire incident. There was Ilara, surrounded by the 3 other girls. There was Serena stepping forward aggressively. There was the unmistakable motion of a slap, Ilara's head snapping to the side. Then came Ilara's lightning-fast response, neutralizing all 3 attackers in seconds. The room was silent as the video concluded. "Miss Thorne," Director Albright said sternly, "you just witnessed yourself assaulting another student on camera. Would you like to revise your statement?" Serena's face had gone pale. It wasn't. I mean, she provoked us. By existing? Ilara asked quietly. By walking through the hallway? Director Albright held up a hand for silence. Miss Vance, your response was certainly dramatic, but the video clearly shows you were acting in self-defense against an unprovoked attack. However, I am concerned about the level of force you employed. I used the minimum force necessary to neutralize the threat, Ilara replied. I could have seriously injured all three of them if I had chosen to. Instead, I used techniques designed to disable without causing permanent damage. She's a menace, Brooke finally spoke up, her voice still shaky. What if she decides to attack someone else? Ilara turned to look at her. I've been attending this school for over a month. In that time, have I shown any aggression toward anyone? Have I initiated any conflicts? Have I threatened anyone? Director Albright consulted Ilara's file. According to your records, Miss Vance, you've never been in trouble at any of your previous schools. No disciplinary actions, no complaints from teachers or students. Because I don't start fights, Ilara said simply. I finish them. The director studied the four girls carefully. Miss Thorne, Miss Vance, Miss Sterling, you are all suspended for 3 days for assault and harassment. When you return, you will be required to attend conflict resolution counseling and complete community service hours. What about her? Serena demanded, pointing at Ilara. Miss Vance will not be suspended, as she was clearly acting in self-defense. However, she turned to Ilara, I strongly recommend that you consider channeling your skills into something more constructive. Have you thought about joining the school's self-defense club or assisting with introductory classes? Ilara felt a genuine smile grace her face for the first time in weeks. I would like that very much. As they exited the headmistress's office, Serena made one last attempt at intimidation. This isn't over, she hissed as they walked down the hallway. Ilara stopped and turned to face her. Yes, it is. And if you or your friends ever lay a hand on me again, I will not be so gentle next time. The quiet certainty in her voice made all three girls take an involuntary step backward. Word of the confrontation spread through Crestwood Academy like wildfire. By the next morning, everyone knew that the quiet new girl had single-handedly subdued the school's most feared bullies. The story grew more elaborate with each retelling, but the core facts remained the same. Ilara Vance was not someone to trifle with. The changes were immediate and dramatic. Students who had never spoken to Ilara before nodded respectfully when she passed in the halls. Teachers looked at her with new interest, particularly the athletics coaches who began making subtle inquiries about her training background. Most importantly, the culture of fear that Serena and her crew had cultivated began to crumble. Ilara found herself approached by students who had their own stories of bullying and harassment. Some wanted to learn to defend themselves, others just wanted to share their experiences with someone who understood. For the first time in her academic career, Ilara felt a sense of belonging. The school's self-defense club, which had been struggling with low membership, suddenly found itself overwhelmed with new applicants. Ilara became an unofficial instructor, patiently teaching basic self-defense techniques to students who had never imagined they could protect themselves. 2 weeks after the incident, something unexpected happened. Ilara was eating lunch with her new friends from the self-defense club when Serena approached their table. The entire cafeteria seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see what would transpire. "May I speak with you?" Serena asked quietly, looking genuinely nervous for the first time since Ilara had known her. Ilara studied her for a moment, then nodded. "All right." They walked to a quiet corner of the cafeteria, far from listening ears. Serena fidgeted with her designer handbag, clearly struggling with what to say. "I wanted to apologize," she finally said, the words tumbling out in a rush. "For everything. The slap, the harassment, all of it. It was inexcusable." Ilara waited, sensing there was more. "I've been thinking a great deal about what you said," Serena continued, about us being insecure and peaking in high school. And you were right. I've been so consumed with being popular and feared that I lost sight of being a decent human being. What prompted this change of heart? Ilara asked. Serena looked embarrassed. My younger sister. She's in 7th grade, and she asked me if it was true that I was a bully. Hearing her say that word, she shook her head. I don't want to be someone my own sister is ashamed of. Ilara felt her anger softening slightly. Being popular does not necessitate being cruel. I understand that now, Serena said. And I know this doesn't erase everything I've done, but I want to strive to be better, to do better. It's a beginning, Ilara acknowledged. When Serena returned from her suspension, she was noticeably different. The cruel comments ceased, the strategic humiliation ended. She still maintained her social status, but she no longer wielded it like a weapon. Chloe and Brooke, following their leader's example, also significantly dialed back their aggression. The transformation wasn't limited to the former bullies. Other students who had witnessed Ilara's stand began finding their own voices. The culture of silent complicity that had allowed harassment to flourish started to crack as more people spoke up for those being targeted. Ilara's reputation as the girl who had single-handedly altered the social dynamics of Crestwood Academy followed her through the remainder of the semester. She received respect not just for her combat skills, but for how she had used them responsibly. She had shown restraint when she could have caused serious harm, and she had channeled her abilities into helping others rather than seeking revenge. As winter break approached, Ilara reflected on how profoundly her life had changed since that day near the awards display. She had friends now, genuine friends who valued her for who she was rather than fearing what she could do. She had discovered a purpose in teaching others to protect themselves. Most importantly, she had learned that sometimes standing up for yourself meant not just defending your body, but defending your right to exist peacefully in the world. The shy, invisible girl who had walked the halls of Crestwood Academy in fear was gone, replaced by someone who understood that true strength came not from the ability to inflict harm, but from the wisdom to discern when that ability was necessary. Ilara Vance had finally found her place, and it was precisely where she belonged, standing tall, speaking clearly, and helping others discover their own inner strength. On the last day before winter break, Ilara found a card in her locker. It was signed by dozens of students, thanking her for making Crestwood Academy a safer place for everyone. At the bottom, in handwriting she recognized as Serena's, was a simple message. Thank you for showing me who I could be, instead of who I was. Ilara smiled as she tucked the card into her backpack. She had come to Crestwood Academy expecting to hide until graduation. Instead, she had discovered that sometimes the best way to disappear is to stand up and be seen for exactly who you are. Someone who refuses to be anyone's victim, and someone willing to help others find that same courage within themselves.